Hey guys, so we're moving on to the next set of notes in Unit 5, and this is talking all about graphing lines using slope-intercept form. And all slope-intercept form is it is a formula, for the equation of a line using its slope and its y-intercept. Okay? So in this case, when we are graphing lines, we want them to be in slope-intercept form. So this is your example of slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, okay? Where m is the slope of your equation. So m represents the slope of your equation. And b represents the y-intercept in your equation, okay? So remember or recall a y-intercept, you may recall that a y-intercept is a point on the y-axis, okay? So it's a point that's exactly on the y-axis. And then you may also recall that the slope, remember, is rise over run, okay? So when we're looking at slope-intercept form, it gives us a slope and a y-intercept, and we're going to graph a line based off of it being this form, in this form. So when you are graphing through a given point with a given slope, these are the steps that you're going to follow. So let's say that you are given the point 3, let's say that you are given the point 3, comma 2, and then you are also given the slope of this equation of a line is, let's say, 2 for this one, okay? So they give you the point and they give you the slope and they're asking you to draw a line from there. So your first step is to start by plotting the given point on the coordinate plane. So the given point that they give us is 3, 2. So I'm going to start by plotting 3, 2 on my coordinate plane. So 3, 2 is right here from my plotting points. So I have plotted the point 3, 2. My next step is from that point, you are going to count out the slope to find the next point. But remember, slope is rise over run. So if my slope is 2, then that tells me that any of my slopes, if they are whole numbers like the number 2, I can always put it over 1. And so from there, I'm going to say that my slope is 2 over 1, which tells me I'm going to move up 2 and right 1 to plot my next point. So from 3, 2, watch what happens. From 3, 2, I'm going to move up 2 notches and right 1 notch to plot my next point. When I do that, I am now going to connect the 2 points to form a line. So you only need 2 points to form a line. So I'm just going to connect those 2 points and form my line. So that's an example if the point were given to you as 3, 2 and the slope was given as 2. Let's try another example. If I give you that the point is -1, -3, and I give you that the slope of the equation of the line is 1/4, okay? Let's look at how this line is going to be. If we follow these steps, first thing we're going to do is we're going to plot the point. So let's plot the point -1, -3. So -1, -3 is right here. Then from here, I'm going to use the fact that the slope is rise over run to plot my next point. So since my top number is +1, that's telling me I'm going to move up 1. And since my bottom number is +4, that tells me I'm going to move right 4 because it is positive. So from that point, -1, -3, I'm going to move up 1 and right 1, 2, 3, 4 so that I can plot my second point. So my second point would end up being somewhere over here. And then from there, I'm just going to connect my 2 dots to make a line. Okay? Plot a point, count out the slope, knowing it means rise over run, and then plot your second point to make a line. Sometimes they're going to give you the equation in y equals mx plus b, which is the slope-intercept form. So when you are graphing lines in slope-intercept form, these are the steps that you want to follow now. So remember, the m represents the slope that is in front of the x. So the number that's out front of the x, remember, is your slope. And the number at the end of your equation, the b, is your y-intercept. So that's your point on the y-axis. So we've got y-intercept, and then we've got slope here. Okay, so let's look at our steps. So step 1 for graphing when it's in y equals mx plus b is to start by placing a point on the y-axis. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to place the y-intercept on the y-axis. That's your first step. Then your second step is to, from that point, count out the slope to find the next point. Okay, so let's look at our example. I know it's kind of small to see, but our example is right here. Y equals negative 3x plus 2. Okay, so remember, it's important to note what our slope is and what our b is right off the back. So our slope here is negative 3. So our m is negative 3. Remember, we always want slopes to be fractions because it's rise over run. So if it's a whole number, put it over 1. And then our b in this equation happens to be 2. So our y-intercept here, or our b here, is 2. So my first step is to start by placing that b on the y-axis. So I'm going to plot 2 right on the y-axis. And if I look, the y-axis is my up and down axis. And I'm going to plot a 2 right on that axis. Okay? Then from there, I'm going to count out the slope to find the next point. So remember, the slope means rise over run. So if my slope is negative 3 over 1, that tells me I'm going to go down 3 because it's negative, and right 1 because it is positive on the bottom. So from this 2 value, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3 notches, and I'm going to go right 1 notch, and I'm going to plot my second point. Then your last step in graphing a line is to connect the 2 points to form a line. So if I connect those 2 points to form a line, I now have my equation of a line, and I have now graphed my line. Okay, so start at the B, plot the B on the y-axis, because remember, y-intercepts are points on the y-axis, and then from there, count out the slope, knowing it means rise over run. So let's try a couple more examples in the next one. So in our next example, it says y equals negative 3x minus 1. So again, first thing to do is to point out what your slope is and what your b is in this equation, or my y-intercept is. So my slope in this equation is negative 1 over 3. And what I did there is I just applied that negative to the top number. So if you have a negative slope, apply the negative to the top number because that tells you where to go. So that tells me since the top number is negative, I'm going to go down 1, and then I'm going to go right 3 because the bottom number is positive. Also in my equation, notice that my b here is actually negative 1 because I have to take the sign that is in front of the number. So remember, according to our steps, my first step is to plot the b, or the y-intercept, on the y-axis. So I'm going to plot negative 1 on the y-axis right here. And then from here, the second step is to use the slope to plot another point. So I'm going to use my slope, knowing it means down 1 and right 3, and I'm going to plot my second point. So my line should look something like this once I connect them. Let's look at the next example. In the next example, we have the slope, the number that's with the x, is 6. Our m is 6. And we have our b is negative 3. So our m is 6 over 1, because I want it to be a fraction, and our b is negative 3. So remember, 6 over 1 as a slope, rise over run, means I'm going to go up 6 and write 1 because they are both positive. So I'm going to start with my point at -3 on the y-axis and I'm going to plot it. So that's going to end up being right there. And then from there, I'm going to go up 6 notches and I'm going to go right 1 notch. So I should end up somewhere over here. And once I have made my 2 points, I can now connect my 2 points to form a line. Okay. Over to the left of our notes here, we have our special cases, okay? So sometimes equations are given in y equals mx plus b, which is how they are given here. And sometimes they're given in this form, which is just y equals mx. Basically, all it has here, all they give you here is a slope, okay? So in this equation, they only give you a slope and they do not give you a b here. So that actually tells you that your b is 0. So in this special case, your your starting point is going to be at 0 on the coordinate plane. And then when you're given an equation where it's y equals some number, like this one, y equals 4, that does not have a slope. It doesn't have an x with it. Instead, all that this equation has is a b. So that tells you that my b is 4, and I'm going to just make a line at 4 that is horizontal. So if you have y equals a number and it's just one number, you're just going to plot that one number on the y-axis and then make a horizontal line. So a line that goes left to right. Okay, those are your special case scenarios. So take your time with graphing lines, but I really highly encourage you to do it this way instead of the way that Alex teaches you, okay? So when you're working on the practice, make sure you graph a line y equals mx plus b by starting at the b and then counting out your slope. As always, let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.